is to show the process of replacing two drive belts on the West Bend model 41300 bread maker. I did not make a video on the disassembly process because it was too painful to do and record at the same time. There were no YouTube videos on how to disassemble this model, so I had to figure it out. While I reassemble this unit, I will point out those things you will need to know to be able to take it apart. There are no external screws that will release the platform from the bottom case. All screws are inside. There are 8 of them. The tools that you'll need will be a 7-inch number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Most standard screwdrivers are 6 inches. You will need a 7-inch screwdriver. And like me, you probably have to go out and buy one. So I bought a 9-inch screwdriver. And if it has a magnetic tip, good, because you're going to need that to extract screws. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy a small magnetic pencil to help extract the screws. You need a small adjustable wrench, a flat blade screwdriver, a hook. That's going to be required to take the top off, a flashlight, 2 small screwdrivers for wedges, and a knife. There are 5 basic parts to the bread maker. There's the top case. The top case is attached to the bottom by these little clips. There are 8 of them. They have to be removed. They have to be pulled back to release the case. I'll discuss that further later. It's also attached to the platform by this strap wire. Make note of how it is attached and what side the color is on, and that the spring is at the top. There's a rectangular beauty ring that's going to have to come off. There's a metal can that's attached to the platform by 8 small screws. These screws will have to be removed before the unit will come out of the bottom. I'll discuss that further also. Inside, there are 4 screws on each side of the drivers. They can remain. They do not play a part in disassembly. There's also a screw on each side, 2 screws on that side. They do not have to be removed either. The bottom case has 2 units that have to be dealt with. One is a hold down here for the wire. It has to be removed or loosened up so that the wire will come out. And then there's a plastic tie that has to be snugged around the wire before it can be reinstalled. The can is attached to the platform by those 6 screws and an additional 3 screws that are 3/4 inch sheet metal screws that also go through this into the platform. And then there are 8 screws in the platform that go directly into the bottom of the case. They all have to be removed. You see here I've reinstalled the belt. The belts are very tight. You cannot put them on this one and try to get them on that. You have to pull these 2 drive wheels off, removing the nut, lock washer, and regular washer on each. You pull these both off, you put the smaller belt on, you put the larger belt on, and then you have to jockey these back onto the shaft in order to get the belts on. This unit can have one of 2 size belts here. You can have a 20-inch belt or a 21-inch belt. You will need to know which one your machine takes. This belt is the same for all units. To determine the length of this belt, take a string and wrap it around, bring it around, and where the end of the string touches the body of the string, mark that, take it off and measure it. My unit takes a 21-inch one. At this point, I'm going to reinstall the can and the base into the bottom. I've now reattached the platform to the bottom of the bread machine, and I'm now ready to put the top on. Earlier I spoke to you about these clips needing to be released before the top will come off the bottom. I'll talk to you in a moment about how to do that. There's also 4 screws that will go from the top into the bottom, and I'll show you how that works. So right now I'm going to reattach the wire Push it until it snaps. When you remove this wire, you have to pinch this clamp down, and you'll probably have to put a screwdriver blade in here and cock it, come over here and cock it until it comes out. At this point, hopefully, the top will snap into place. I've reattached the can to the platform to the bottom of the bread machine. I'm now going to attach the top to the bottom. I told you earlier that there are snaps along the sides of the top, plastic snaps, that snap into the male counterpart on the bottom. Those snaps do have to be in place. But in addition, the top is held down by held in place by 5 1/2 inch sheet metal screws. I've replaced those 1/2 inch sheet metal screws with 3/4 inch so that I get a better bite. After the screws are in place, you snap the caps back on in all 5 locations. I'm now going to reassemble the top to the bottom. At this point now, I've reattached the top to the bottom with 5 1-inch screws, and then you put the cap on it. There's one other part that has to be reattached, and this is this beauty ring. It's held in place by these tips all the way around. It has to be removed before you can get to the pan and take the unit apart. So you on disassembly, take these 5 screws out, you pop this out, and you do that by getting a screwdriver down in here and popping them out. I did this one and that one, then I went over and did that one and that one, then I did this one. At that point, you have to pry the corners and lift it off like this. The reason you need this removed is so that you can get to the screws inside that hold this pan to the platform. This pan has to be released so that it will move around freely and allow you to get to the clips that are on the top here, that clip the top to the bottom. You have to get inside and pop each one. That works fine for all these. You can move the can around and get to these through here and these through here. But the ones up here in front, you cannot get to. That's why you need a hook. You put the hook inside, you put it on that clamp, and you pry it out. Do this side, do this side. At that point, you can lift the top up. It'll pivot on the front, and you can get it there and pop that one off. After you get the top off, then you can disassemble the rest of it as you saw me reassembling it, taking the platform out and getting to the belts. So basically, that's what you need to do to take the bread machine apart. I would suggest that when you get back to reassembling it, before you snap the top back together, that you plug it in and try it and see that it still works. If it doesn't, don't bother putting it back together. I think that concludes then the disassembly of the West Bend 41300 bread machine. I do want to say one more thing about the belts. I don't think I was quite clear enough. There are 3 kinds of belts. I told you that I used a 21-inch belt, and I told you how I measured it. But what you need to know is that is referred to as a 537 millimeter belt. The 420 belt is a smaller belt. And let's see, I put someplace here. I believe it's a 519 is the other belt that you can choose from, and that'd be the 20-inch belt. All right, that's how you do it. Thank you. In reviewing my videos prior to putting them on YouTube, I noticed there are several areas where I did not make a clear enough statement as to how to take part of the unit apart. This is the beauty ring that's been installed, and I discussed how that has to be removed. Once it's removed, there's a space between this pan and this top part of the bread maker. There's a space in there. You have to take a long screwdriver, and I've got a 12-inch one here. You have to take a long screwdriver and go down between those two and remove the 8 small screws that hold this pan to the base. So you go all the way around, removing all those screws. Once they're removed, that allows you to shift this pan around inside. And in so shifting it around, it allows you to get your hand up under here to release these clips. Now when I took mine apart, I took very special care not to lose the screws, and I extracted each one out the top. But after taking it all completely apart, once the base is removed from the bottom of the bread machine, then you can gather up all the screws and then put them aside to use later. So you don't need to take that effort to extract them with a magnet if you do not want to. Another area that I probably should point out to you is that when I put this beauty ring back on, it was really hard. It was hard for a couple of reasons. One, it was hard to get some of these snaps back in place. And secondly, this ring itself has an inner lip in here that this pan sits up under. And you have to get that aligned at the same time you're trying to put this beauty ring in. And that was very difficult to do. So I might suggest, and I didn't do it, but I might suggest that before you put the top unit back on, that you attach the beauty ring to the top unit. Then when you're trying to put it back onto the bottom, then it'll already be in place, and you might have a better chance of getting it attached. You probably still have to struggle with getting these two to line up as you're putting the top part of the bread maker together. I suggest that you start with putting this screw in, and then putting that screw in and that screw in, partly screwing them down, and then taking small screwdrivers and pulling these out appropriately as you're pushing down on the top. And follow up by putting that next one screw in over here, and then the one over here, and again working it towards the front until finally you get to this edge where you can then get the screwdriver in there and pop that one out. Also, in the removal of the top from the unit, when I released the clips inside, the males from the females, I had to put a small screwdriver in between the two to keep it from snapping back down in. So you'll have to do the same thing. Then that way it allows you to work down and release each of the units. I had to add that to make the video complete. Thank you.